Welcome everyone to the 7th conference of Phase B of this self-knowledge course. This is a very important lecture in which we will explore in depth what initiation truly is and the trials that accompany the initiatory path. Let us begin then by understanding what initiation means. When we receive this knowledge, we begin to realize that life has a far greater purpose than what we had previously understood. For most of humanity, life consists simply of being born, growing, and passing through the years, seeking personal or material achievements, only to eventually die, often holding the belief that in the afterlife they will be rewarded according to the beliefs they maintained during their existence. However, as we begin to comprehend that each human existence is an opportunity to fulfill the true purpose of life, which is the intimate self-realization of our being, or the complete awakening of our consciousness, a new path begins to reveal itself before us. This is the initiatory path, a path filled with mysteries, which we must enter and walk in order to fully develop our spiritual nature. It is important to understand that initiation is not something we receive externally in the physical world, nor is it related to academic titles, social status, or religious positions. True initiation is an inner process. It is something deeply intimate to the soul. Initiation is our own life, lived intensely with righteousness, wisdom, and love. The self does not receive initiations or degrees. It is the intimate, our inner being, who receives them. Progress on the initiatory path is verified in the internal worlds through conscious astral experiences. Everything related to these processes is profoundly intimate between us and our being, and therefore it should not be shared with others in the physical world. We enter the initiatory path when we succeed in igniting the sacred fire of Kundalini within us, and we advance through the initiations as we create the solar bodies. There are 5 principal initiations of the major mysteries. These initiations cannot be attained without sexual magic and the awakening of Kundalini. Therefore, we must clearly understand that to receive them, we must be working with the sacred fire through the practice of suprasex, with a stable partner of the opposite sex in fidelity, chastity, and love. Another important point to understand is that the initiations and degrees granted by many schools in the physical world have no real value in the superior worlds. The masters of the White Lodge recognize only the true initiations of the soul. These are entirely internal and are directly related to the creation of the solar bodies on the first mountain. When the sacred fire of Kundalini begins to rise through our spine, we receive, in the astral world, a sword with a small blade, which grows as we advance through the initiations. Each time we manage to condense the sexual energy within the 33 vertebrae of a body, we receive a corresponding initiation. The creation of each body may take approximately 2.5 years, provided there is continuous and sustained work. The masters of the White Lodge are not concerned with positions, degrees, or hierarchies in the physical world. Their attention is placed solely on the development of Kundalini. They examine and measure the spinal column. If a candidate has not raised the serpent, then for them, that person remains a profane, regardless of any status they may hold in the physical world. Therefore, we must clearly understand that the first step on the initiatory path is to ignite the sacred fire of Kundalini within the spine, which allows us to receive the silver sword in the astral world. In Lecture 5 of Phase B, we studied the process of balancing the centers and the fabrication of the mercuries, which is essential to reach the necessary level of purification required for this stage. To achieve this, we must remain attentive in continuous self-observation from moment to moment, in order to detect the subtle manifestations of the ego within us and avoid the unnecessary loss of energy. At the same time, we must work deeply in meditation on all aspects of lust that prevent us from conserving our sexual energy so that we may attain a significant level of chastity. When we reach this stage, when our mercury has become yellow, we are subjected to a trial of fire. This trial measures whether we have gained control over our inner fire, that is, over our passions. It often manifests as a test of anger, typically arising through conflict with the partner. If in that moment we refrain from reacting, from arguing or fighting, and instead apply psychological death, eliminating the negative elements that arise within us, and later that same night we practice suprasex with our partner, then the sacred fire will be ignited. During that transmutation, our mercury becomes red. From that point on, if we achieve conscious astral projection, we will be able to verify the presence of a small silver sword at the right side of our belt. In this way, we enter the initiatory path, beginning the regeneration of the physical body, corresponding to the first initiation of the major mysteries. Let us now study the 5 initiations of the first mountain. The first initiation is related to the ascent of the first serpent, which corresponds to the solar physical body. This initiation is completed when we succeed in condensing the sexual energy through the 33 vertebrae of the physical body, allowing the sacred fire to reach the magnetic field at the root of the nose. Through this initiation, we gain power over our inner earth element, that is, over our sexual center, and we are granted power over the elementals of the earth, the gnomes and the pygmies. To reach this level, we must pass through specific trials related to hardship and poverty, as well as continuous tests that measure our patience and our chastity. The second initiation is related to the ascent of the second serpent, corresponding to the solar vital body. Once again, the initiation is completed when the sacred fire rises through the spinal column and reaches the magnetic field at the root of the nose. With this initiation, we gain power over our inner waters, that is, our energy, and it grants power over the elementals of water, the undines, and the nereids. To attain this initiation, we must also pass through trials of hardship and poverty, along with constant tests that challenge our patience and chastity. In the case of men, the second initiation of the major mysteries may involve a very specific trial, being accused of a crime that has not been committed, and even facing imprisonment. This test must be endured without despair and without falling into pride or arrogance. The third initiation is related to the creation of the solar astral body. When the sacred fire reaches the magnetic field at the root of the nose, it must then descend to the heart through a secret path. With the completion of this process, the astral fire is born. At this stage, the neophyte must live, in the astral body, the entire drama of the Passion of Christ. They must symbolically experience crucifixion, death, and burial, followed by resurrection, and must also descend into the abyss, remaining there for 40 days before ascending. All of this is an internal process, lived consciously in the astral plane. To achieve this initiation, it is essential to understand how to truly love one's partner. The sexual union must be infused with profound and selfless love. Every gesture, every word, and every caress must be completely free from desire. To complete this initiation, we must undergo continuous trials that test our obedience to the Father, as well as our loyalty to our energy and to our partner. At the end of this initiation, the initiate gains power over his inner fire, that is, his emotions, and receives power over the salamanders of fire. The fourth initiation of the major mysteries is related to the creation of the solar mental body. In this process, the sacred fire ascends to the point between the eyebrows and then descends to the heart. During this initiation, the mind must be crucified and stigmatized. Within the mental world, the universal fire shines through each of the 33 chambers that are opened at this stage, revealing profound and often difficult truths. To advance through this initiation, we must face numerous trials that measure our ability to detach ourselves from everything. At this level, a strong commitment to sacrifice for humanity is required, along with the discipline of learning not to criticize. Upon completing this initiation, the initiate gains power over his inner air, that is, his thoughts, and over the elementals of the air, the sylphs and sylphids, and also acquires the conscious and voluntary management of the solar astral and solar mental bodies. The fifth initiation of the major mysteries is related to the creation of the body of the solar will. Here again, the sacred fire rises to the point between the eyebrows and then descends to the heart. Whoever completes this initiation becomes a true human being, possessing a real human soul. At this stage, we learn to consciously fulfill the will of the Father. It is within the fifth initiation that we are faced with a decisive choice between two paths: the path of nirvana and the direct path. Through this initiation, the body of conscious will is brought into existence. To complete it, we must pass through trials that measure our willingness to renounce the world, as well as our capacity to obey the inner Father. Upon completing this initiation, the initiate gains power over his whole inner nature. Since he now has willpower, he can manage the faculties developed to that point and exert dominion over the elementals of nature. Let us now explore in greater depth the trials of initiation. When we enter the initiatory path and begin this inner work, a series of intense and demanding trials arise before us. The initiate must be tested in every aspect in order to determine whether they are truly prepared to continue advancing. These tests may extend over months, even years, during which one is examined daily to verify whether one is capable of remaining on the path and fulfilling each initiation. The first type of trials we will examine are the trials of details. These are subtle tests that are presented to us constantly from moment to moment in our daily life. They require a rigorous inner discipline, and to pass them successfully, continuous psychological work, especially psychological death from moment to moment, is essential. Anyone may be able to pass a great trial, but the small, almost insignificant tests are the ones that most people fail. This is precisely where many initiates become stuck, because they do not recognize these situations as tests. These trials appear in simple, everyday circumstances, for example, finding a coin on the ground. One might think that it has no value, yet by taking it, one fails a trial of details because one is appropriating something that does not belong to them. These tests examine us in every aspect of life, financially, within the family, and in matters of honesty, ambition, pride, lust, anger, jealousy, tyranny, laziness, and so on. Only through constant self-observation and the practice of psychological death can we succeed in overcoming them. Every achievement on this path must be earned. What we gain by passing these trials is reflected in initiations and degrees, but nothing is given freely. Everything requires effort and conscious work. These trials take place both in the physical world and in the internal worlds. This means that we are tested not only through our actions in physical situations, but also through our behavior in similar circumstances within the astral plane. To truly advance, we must succeed on both levels. If we fail a test, it becomes necessary to reflect deeply through meditation on what occurred. We must observe, understand, and eliminate the defects that led us to act incorrectly. In this way, when the same test is presented again, we will already have the comprehension needed to respond correctly, allowing us to pass and continue advancing on the path. There are also the trials of the guardians. The first of these trials is encountered during the creation of the solar astral body in the presence of the guardian of the astral world. In the astral plane, we will find ourselves face to face with a terrifying monster. To pass this test, we must confront it directly, throwing ourselves at it and defeating it with our sword. Whoever retreats or flees proves unfit as an initiate because they remain a slave to the ego. This monster represents our own ego, and if we feel fear and run away, we demonstrate that we are not yet willing to eliminate it. This trial is presented once, and if it is failed, it may be repeated up to 2 additional times. If we fail it 3 times, we lose the inner strength required for the path and eventually abandon the knowledge. The second of these trials takes place before the guardian of the mental world, and it is faced during the creation of the solar mental body. It is important to understand that the human mind is not truly human, it still functions at an animal level. On the mental plane, each person takes on a form that reflects their psychological nature. The cunning may appear as a fox, while those dominated by passion may resemble a dog or a goat. The encounter with the guardian of the threshold of the mental plane is even more terrifying. This is the great guardian of the world. Within this entity, our mental errors and distortions are personified. Those who fail this trial remain under the domination of this inner monster. To overcome it, we must confront it with determination, throwing ourselves at it and defeating it with our sword. The third and final of these trials is faced before the guardian of the world of will, also known as the guardian of the paths. This occurs during the creation of the solar causal body. In this encounter, we are required to make a fundamental decision to choose between the direct path, narrow and demanding, or the broad and easy path of nirvana. The guardian presents both options, explaining that one leads to the absolute, while the other leads to nirvana. Those who are not prepared to fully surrender to the will of the Father choose the easier path, the path of nirvana. It is said that 999 out of 1,000 initiates choose this route. Only a very small number, those who are truly willing to fulfill the will of the Father, choose the direct path. The path of nirvana may lead to peaceful and harmonious states of existence, even participation in higher societies across the universe. However, those who choose this path remain at a certain level of development, having awakened only a portion of their consciousness. Only those who dare to take the direct path, which leads to the ascent of the second mountain, are able to unite with their divine soul and achieve the birth of the intimate Christ within. Through this, they continue advancing toward the complete self-realization of the being and the full awakening of consciousness, attaining true freedom and the capacity to act consciously across all levels of existence. There are also the trials of the four elements, the trials of earth, water, fire, and air. These tests are presented to us constantly from moment to moment, as through them the hierarchies evaluate the inner state of the initiate, determining whether one is truly practicing or not. Their purpose is to temper us, to strengthen our will, and to develop seriousness in our inner work. The trials of earth are related to poverty and material hardship. In the astral plane, these tests may appear as the experience of being trapped between two massive rocks that slowly close in, creating a sense of pressure and confinement. If the candidate reacts with fear or despair, they fail the test. We must learn to take advantage of adversity because the greatest difficulties often contain the greatest opportunities for growth. To smile in the face of hardship is part of the law. Those who allow themselves to be overcome by suffering in the challenges of life cannot successfully pass the trials of earth. On the physical plane, these tests are reflected in situations related to finances and material conditions. If we face them consciously, applying our psychological work, we will overcome them both externally and internally. The trials of water are also fundamental. In these tests, the candidate may find themselves in the astral plane thrown into the ocean with the sensation of drowning. Those who do not know how to adapt to the different circumstances of life, who cannot live among all types of people, or who give up in the face of life's struggles, inevitably fail this trial. The trials of fire are designed to measure serenity and inner sweetness. Those who are dominated by anger or emotional reactivity cannot pass these tests. During these trials, the candidate may experience being persecuted, insulted, or slandered in the astral plane. Many react with aggression and immediately fail. At other times, one may find oneself surrounded by flames. These flames terrify those who in daily life have not learned to control their passions and emotional impulses. Finally, we encounter the trials of air. These tests are related to detachment. Those who fall into despair when they lose something or someone they love, or who are unwilling to let go, fail these trials. In the astral plane, the candidate may experience being thrown into a deep abyss. The one who reacts with fear or panic returns to the physical body, failing the test. These are, in general, the principal trials related to initiation. If we truly wish to walk the path that leads to liberation, we must learn to take advantage of the most difficult moments in life. It is precisely within adversity that the opportunity to advance on this path is hidden. And with this, we conclude today's lecture. In our next conference, we will study everything related to the sacred fire. You are warmly invited to continue with us in the exploration of this profound and fascinating topic. Until next time.